All right, what's up guys? It's Brev. Welcome to another comprehensive positional tier list video. Today is Monday, May 23rd of 2022. As always with the socials, my Twitch is twitch.tv/Cbrev. My Twitter is @CbrevMLB. And if you're seeing this somewhere other than YouTube, my YouTube is Cbrev. I also do have a Patreon, which is linked down in the description below if you want to check that out as well. This is an exciting tier list. I just posted one, 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, and maybe a bit over 3 weeks actually, and we've had a ton of new cards in the game that are really good. So a lot has actually changed on the tier list, so making this one was pretty fun. As always, disclaimers, these are just my opinions. They are subjective, obviously. I'm not telling you what cards to use. I'm just trying to give you a framework of what I think is good and what isn't, to kind of help you build your own team. If I say a guy's good and you are struggling with him, don't be afraid to move on. If I say a guy's terrible and you're dominating with him, don't be afraid to leave him in your roster. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the rankings. Color coding, just a reminder, a green player is a guy that was not on the previous tier list, meaning he was not in the game yet when the last one came out. A blue is a guy in a secondary position, and then if it's a new card in a secondary position, I just left it as green, so that may pop up here and there. But immediately in catcher, we have two new cards in S tier, and the one that may be jumping out right away is Taylor Ward in third. Do want to talk about Taylor Ward quite a bit. He's been one of my best hitters, even on Legend. He is still hitting over 400 for me, and even though his defense numbers look terrible, he's played much better than you would expect him to behind the plate for me personally. So haven't had much issues with him behind the dish. I've even thrown out a bunch of speedy guys trying to steal bases. I try not to bury pitches in the dirt in big spots, but other than that, if you're that worried about it and you still want to run Taylor Ward, you could always run, a defensive catcher option on the bench if you're so inclined. But really like Ward a lot. He's been absolutely raking for me. Great bat to have at catcher and a great budget bat too. We also have Posada jumping up into second. Card's insane. Probably should have ranked him higher in the previous tier list. And Adley in a close fourth there behind Taylor Ward. We do have Jorge Alfaro in S tier, the Topps Now card. I've always liked his swings. We haven't really had many diamond cards of him, and attribute-wise, the card looks pretty solid overall as well, so definitely an S tier catcher. In the middle of A tier, we have Patrick Mazeika, Topps Now as well. Otherwise, not much has changed. Some of those gold tier catchers in B tier kind of cycling out at this point. Catcher, always one of the shallowest positions, but really love Taylor Ward in my catcher spot. On to first base, we have the new 97 Delgado, who I do not have ahead of Frank Thomas, but it's actually really close. Delgado's cracked. A lot of people struggle with Frank Thomas from what I've heard, so don't be afraid to try Delgado at first. Card is insane. Newcomers as well, we have Anthony Rizzo, the Lightning card. Not prepared to put him ahead of Josh Bell, but still a pretty solid card. A lot of people, including myself, were disappointed in him as the choice for the Lightning card, just because it was a lefty first baseman. But the card itself is actually pretty good, definitely worthy of S+ tier. And then the third new card in S+ tier is Eugenio Suarez, another great budget card, especially if you play on All-Star difficulty. Card is so insanely good. He has so much pop for this early in the year. Amazing first baseman. You'll see him on the third base slide as well. In the middle of S tier, we have 88 Jock, which some of you may be shaking your heads that he's not in S+ tier, but he is just a platoon bat if you're going to start him, and there's a lot of good lefty starters in the game right now, so leaving him in to hit left on left is not going to be good, and because that weakness is so big, that's why he's not in S tier. Then we also have Taylor Ward in S tier at the bottom as well, and Nolan Arenado getting upgraded to a 91 recently. A tier has Ty France, Don Mattingly, and Paul Molitor in there. And then for the rest of first base, here are some more options for you if you're so inclined. I am only ranking the top 50 of each position, so you'll see 30 on the first page, 20 on the second page, and if I don't list a guy, it means I don't think he's in the top 50 for the position. All right, on to second base, which is a really exciting position now, and maybe one of the hardest positions for me to rank out of this entire tier list. The top 5 cards in S+ tier for second base honestly could be rearranged in any order, depending on your play style. I think maybe the top 3 are a bit ahead of 4 and 5, but still 4 and 5 are really good. So I do still have Utley first, but Mookie and Keuchel are very, very, very close behind. I almost rated Mookie ahead of Utley. It's so close. 95 Mookie's insane. If you guys didn't know, he has a second base secondary position. Now you do. Amazing opportunity to take one of the more shallow positions in the game and throw a Mookie Betts there if you don't have Chase Utley. So amazing card. We also have Ketel Marte in third. Middle infielder. You'll see him ranked in a different middle infield spot as well. Amazing contact, balanced hitting, switch hitter, good enough defense. Just an amazing all-around card. J-Ram getting upgraded to a 92. He's incredible. And then 94 Joe Morgan from the BR program. Maybe the most underrated card from the program. Not too many people seem too excited about him. But he's basically like Jazz Chisholm and Corey Seager merged together. He has Jazz's defense and Seager's hitting minus a little bit of power. So I really like the card a lot. If you can get over how short he is and his weird batting stance, always loved his cards year in and year out. Anyway, second base is a really tough position to make decisions on right now, especially if you have a lot of options. But these are how I have them ranked. In the middle of S tier, we've got Owen Miller, the monthly awards card. And then in A tier, some more options. Adames, France, Crawford, and Lux, among others. Trey Turner dropping down to A tier now that he's been downgraded to an 85 overall, which is a bummer. Started the year at 90. Hopefully he picks it back up soon. Here are some more options for you for second base. On to third base, maybe the least changed position from the last tier list. I still have Pujols number 1 and J-Ram number 2. We've got Matthews and Banks as well in S plus tier, great budget options. And then you see Suarez is back as an S plus tier third baseman. And we have Vinny Castilla, the World Series reward. I have him below Suarez for most people because Suarez has a lot more power. And Vinny really only has, contact versus left ahead of Suarez. But it's close. All these S plus tier third basemen are really good. But yeah, overall, I still have Pujols number 1. In the middle of S tier, you see Ty France there yet again. And then in A tier, we've got Taylor Ward, Mattingly, Tony Perez, and Matt Chapman as new cards. Gonna fly through this position because, like I said, not a lot has changed, especially at the top. But, still solid options. Matthews, Banks, very good budget options for you if you need a third baseman. Here are the rest of the third base rankings for you if you need to see them. And we are on to shortstop now, which has a new number 1, which is Ketel Marte. I do think Ketel Marte is the best shortstop in the game. I think shortstop is the best place for him. I know the defense might sketch you out a little bit, but he plays fine over there. He's got good enough defense and good enough speed to play middle infield just fine. And I think with how shallow the position is in general and the bat that he brings to the table, it's 100% worth it to be starting him there as the number 1 card in the game. Second shortstop, I have J-Ram, yet again, amazing all-around card. And then a surprising card, or a card you may be surprised to see in the top 5 there, is 91 Trevor Story. I've said before, I think he's maybe the most underrated shortstop, one of the best budget shortstops you can use. Very hot on Ernie Banks' tail. If you value defense more than offense, you could definitely have him ahead of Banks even on these rankings. Just a great swing, amazing defense. Really the only knock on the card is the contact versus right. Always love me some Trevor Story cards, though. And then in 6, we do have Brandon Crawford. I know a lot of people are sketched out about his speed at shortstop. I am too, but the bat's pretty crazy, especially for shortstop. And this year, specifically, you can maybe get away a little bit more with slow middle infielders than in years past, just because your players love to slather themselves up in oil, and when you dive, they slide halfway across the infield. So since dives are so overpowered this year, you can make up a ton of ground with, having speed be not a factor at all. You just dive and slide everywhere. So 35 speed may not be as bad at shortstop as you think in terms of range. So give Crawford a try if you want. Obviously, Crawford's like 8 times more expensive than Story, and I have him rated lower, so take that as it is. But yeah, just my rankings there. S tier, just one new card, Owen Miller there towards the bottom. And then A tier, some cards you've seen before. We do have Suarez in there, but all the way down in A tier because his defense is pretty bad. in the middle infield. I think he's even slower than Crawford and has like silver or bronze defense at shortstop. So a bit lower there. Here's the rest of the shortstop rankings. And then we move on to outfield, which is also exciting because we have 4 new cards in the top 10. Namely Mookie Betts in 3rd. So yeah, Mookie Betts is crazy good. If I had a God squad, I'd probably play him at second base if I had to choose. But it's really close. Depends on how much you like Chase Utley and so on. I do have Ketel Marte in 5th. Solid outfield option as well. Going to play okay defense out there, but the bat that Ketel brings to the table is really, really strong. You may be surprised to see Carlos Delgado there listed 6th, ahead of guys even like Kirk Gibson. Talked about it a lot before, but I really believe that you can get away with poor outfield defense in the corner outfield this year, more so than any other year. And Delgado's bat is obviously crazy. So if you already have a first baseman you like maybe you want to play Frank and Delgado. Delgado in left field is not as bad as you think it would be this year. I've played a lot of guys with poor defense. I've even messed around like with Josh Bell. I think I've said before. Josh Bell in left field has played fine. So Delgado in left field would be also fine if you really just want to slam the bats and have the best offense possible. The other new card that we have in S plus tier is 93 Gary Sheffield, who I think was in the game before actually, so he maybe should have been white instead of green. Anyway, top 10 for me, a lot of the same reasons as I talked about with Delgado. Insane bat. The defense doesn't hurt you as much this year, and a lot of good lefty starters in the game too, so Sheffield gets a huge bump there because he crushes lefties. Really like that card a lot. In S tier, we got J-Ram Mullins dropping down just to make room for the other goons that have joined S+. Justice, and then Ralph Kiner, you may be surprised to see in there, but yet again, corner outfield defense can kind of get away with it, and if you play on All-Star, Kiner's going to be insane because he's really lacking the contact, but the power is amazing. And then we got Aaron Judge upgraded to a 91, and then Dante Bichette, same story. Really have been preferring, just having more bats in my lineup, I guess. Taylor Ward in A+ tier. Adam Dunn rounding out the first page. And then for outfield and starting pitching, I actually do 60 instead of 50. And here is the rest of the rankings there. You can see Nelson Cruz, even with 21 speed, still ranked him at 31st. Jock is there as well. The new Juan Pierre, Will Myers in B tier. And then Don Mattingly, Luis Barrera in C tier. Starting pitcher, also another exciting one. Lots of new good cards. The top 5 may be a bit surprising, but let's talk about it. So Randy's going to be number 1 for a while. Let's move on from that. And then in 2nd and 3rd, I have Roy Halladay and Tom Glavine. Halladay, I think, is a pretty firm number 2 for me. Haven't used the card yet. Obviously, he just came out. But more hits per 9 standard than Randy Johnson even. And great pitch mix, going to be a new legend in the game, so not a lot of people have faced his delivery and, how his pitches come in and stuff. Wish he had a slurve instead of a curveball, but overall I think the card is going to be insanely good, and that's good because everyone's going to have him basically for free. So I'm very excited he's in the game. Love Roy Halladay, always loved watching him pitch, and I have him at number 2. At number 3, I have 95 Tom Glavine, who also just came out. And I think he's a pretty firm number 3 for me as well. I think there's a bit of a drop-off after Glavine. This top 3 is a pretty firm top 3. But if you guys want to go take a look at Tom Glavine's pitches, they are nuts. He's got pretty close to max control on every single pitch, and the break on all of his pitches is really strong as well. He's got, only 89 hits per 9, but that's actually okay to good at this point in the year, and great control as well. Think he's an insanely solid card, probably a must cop for a God squad, and I'm happy we have him that high of an overall this early yet again. 2 years in a row getting to use a great Tom Glavine card early, which I'm excited about because I love using Tom Glavine cards. All right, let's get to the controversial one. I have Kershaw in 4th. This is a card I've gotten a lot of flack for. A lot of other people have said they don't like Kershaw. I don't think the slower slider affects the card at all, and I think he's just a really solid Kershaw card. When you're pitching with the card, you want to throw it like a slider primary, but overall, his pitch mix is basically ideal. He throws from the left side. His delivery is pretty glitchy, especially when you pitch out of the stretch. His pitches get a lot better. Seems like they come in, turbo speed compared to when he's pitching out of the windup. Specifically, the sinker and circle changeup are really strong out of the stretch just because of how he releases the ball. I just think he's a top 5 pitcher. That's just my opinion. Moving on from that, I have Keuchel in 5th. And then you may be surprised to see Shohei dropping down to 6th because I'm the biggest Shohei fan ever. But he has had a bit of a knock in his hitting stats from the roster updates. And then also from the roster updates, they completely changed his pitches. They changed the velocity of like every off-speed pitch he throws. So one of the main reasons I loved Ohtani before was he threw a cutter that was way slower than his four-seam, which was super unique. Previously, Ohtani was, his cutter was about 15 miles an hour slower than his four-seam. Since they've raised the velo of all of his off-speed pitches, it's really reduced the speed differential of the card a lot, and I think it's made him worse. The cutter's a lot closer to the fastball. The slider is a lot closer to the cutter. The splitter is, right in between, but still really hard. Not a ton of speed differential there. So all that is to say, I still think he's really solid, but I don't think he's top 5 after the changes. I think the changes to his pitches made him significantly worse. Then we have Price and DeGrom right after. Corbin Burns getting upgraded to 90 in the last roster update. And then another one you may be surprised to see is 91 Madison Bumgarner in S+ tier. Basically the same pitch mix as Kershaw and can hit a little bit. Card's super underrated. His control is so good. The pars, the perfect accuracy region for his four-seam and cutter specifically are so tiny. Even on Legend, I feel like I can throw his cutter wherever I want to all the time. So Bumgarner top 10 for me. Another couple of guys you may be surprised to see at the top of S tier here. We got Cole Hamels and Juan Marichal. So Cole Hamels may be the most under the radar starting pitcher that has come out recently, overshadowed because he's in the Roy Halladay program, but the card is super solid. Basically Bumgarner also, but with a two-seam instead of a sinker. And I've always loved Cole Hamels cards. He has a pretty glitchy delivery as well. I think the cards just play really well. So if you need a free pitcher, that's a great option, as you'll see when we get to the budget squads. Same with Juan Marichal, who I did a whole gameplay on, and I think he's super underrated as well. His pitches are really good. Another card that has benefited a lot from being released early on in the year and such. I think he's really strong. Mussina dropping down to S tier now. Then we got Kyle Wright and J.R. Richard there, and then Al Leiter towards the bottom of S tier. In A tier, we have Pablo Lopez and Aaron Nola for new cards. Seaver still in A tier. They did update the deliveries. I forgot to mention that. Oral Hershiser, Tom Seaver, and Lefty Grove did get their deliveries updated now, so they are correct. So that, I think, improves all three of those cards across the board, and these rankings account for that. I still don't think Tom Seaver is that good, though, even with the updated pitching motion. Here are the rest of the top 60 for starting pitchers. I would really try to get one from the first page if you can, but there's still a lot of solid options here. All right, right-handed reliever, top 3, Juan, I think is how you say his name, Juan Duran. Card's insane. Card's good on every difficulty. His speed differentials for a reliever are perfect. He's basically Rob Dibble with a splitter, which is crazy, an outlier splitter at that. He throws an outlier four-seamer and an outlier splitter and has a cutter. Card is so good. And he's so cheap. Definitely a must-cop for basically every bullpen in the game, I think. Otherwise, not much has changed in the right-handed relief pitcher rankings. We do have Bruce Sutter there in S tier, but pretty significantly down. Card looks pretty good on paper, but his pitch mix is just something that I always struggle to make work. There's only so many things you could do with splitter slider, basically, is all he throws, besides four-seam, which isn't thrown hard. Rysel got upgraded to a diamond, which is pretty cool. And then we got Victor Arano and Jordan Romano in A tier. Lefties, only new card is Brad Hand, who is actually a pretty good card, 90 overall. I don't think I'd play him over Loop if I had to pick one, but I do think he's better than Andrew Miller and Billy Wagner, so that's where he's sitting right there. Otherwise, rankings haven't changed much. Still think the best one is Britton by far, and then Chapman, Franco, Hader, and Loop following it up. All right, we mixed up these team build slides again. I got rid of the slide that was, no collections, no World Series, no BR. That slide just doesn't really work with how prices are this year. There's a lot of cards that would have been on that slide which are very expensive, and the point of that slide was a budget squad. So instead we made an ultra budget squad. This is the best team possible with no card costing over 15,000 stubs. There's no green on this slide because this is a new slide, but on the next team builds, if it's green, it just means it's a guy that made the team that wasn't on the team in the last tier list. Anyway, we got Jazz Chisholm at second base. You're going to see a lot of Face of the Franchise cards in this extreme budget lineup. Brian Reynolds in right field, Ernie Banks playing shortstop, Josh Bell at first, David Justice in left, Taylor Ward at catcher, Eddie Matthews at third, and Cedric Mullins in center field. I have also ordered these lineups in all these team builds, how I would order them. So if you just want to rock this team, that's the order that your lineup should be in my opinion, to maximize everyone's bats. On the bench, there's not really any good switch hitters that are under 15K, except for Josh Bell, who we are starting. So instead, we're running 3 righties, 2 lefties instead of 2-2 switch. Those righties are Bichette, Story, and Robert. Great righty bench bats. And then our lefties are going to be Jock Peterson and Corey Seager. In the rotation, we got Halladay, who obviously, as a disclaimer, he's a lot more than 15K right now, or at least he was last time I checked, but he'll probably be under 15K by the end of the program because every single person can get him. And if you complete the program yourself, you're just going to get him for free. So obviously he's going to be on this team. Otherwise, we got Bumgarner, Hamels, Kyle Wright, and Al Leiter. And then in the bullpen, we've got Devin Williams, Steve Cishek, Adam Ottavino, and Juan Duran. And our lefties are Britton, Chapman, Loop, and 90 Brad Hand. So hopefully this slide specifically helps you guys out. If you're struggling, you want a really cheap team. If you have more stubs than this, then you can move up in certain positions and so on. But hopefully this helps give a bit of a framework. Next slide is the best team with no card costing over 35,000, which was a new addition last tier list, which you guys seem to enjoy. Leading off, we have Joe Morgan at second base, who actually is really close to 35K right now. He's a bit more. He's actually about 40K. I think he'll drop to right around 35K towards the end of this BR program, but it's really close. But, I mean, you can scrounge out enough extra 5K for Joe Morgan, because the other option would be Jazz, who is, you know, a little bit lower on the rankings for second base. And Joe Morgan's just a beast. All right, we got Gary Sheffield playing right field, Cedric Mullins in center, Banks at shortstop, Yelich this time in left field, Josh Bell at first, Eddie Matthews at third, and Taylor Ward playing catcher. On the bench, we are actually using Ty France. I like him a lot as a righty infield bench bat, plays 3 positions, and is great against lefties. Luis Robert for our outfield righty. Our lefties are David Justice and Corey Seager. No Jock Peterson here, but you could definitely do it instead of Justice or Seager there. And then Brian Reynolds is our switch hitter. Our rotation is Roy Halladay, as mentioned before. David Price has dropped now, if you notice, from Yelich as well. A lot of the cards from the Big Dog Pack rare rounds have dropped under 35K now, which is exciting. So this team has Yelich in the lineup and Price in the rotation now. We've got Burns, who is still under 35K, Bumgarner, and Hamels rounding out the rotation. In the bullpen, we've got Devin Williams, Juan Duran, Steve Cishek, Adam Ottavino. And our lefties are Britton, Chapman. You can add John Franco now. His price has crashed a ton from the Big Dog, Rare Round, and 78 Aaron Loop. And to round out the video, we have the best team possible if you had access to every single card in the game. A couple of changes to the lineup. We are playing Mookie Betts in the left field and Ketel Marte at shortstop. So those are the changes to the God Squad, you could say. A couple of disclaimers. If you get Mookie to parallel 1, he has diamond defense in right field, so you could flip-flop him and Clemente if you want to. Depends on how much you value arm strength, because Mookie does have significantly less arm strength. His arm strength at parallel 1 would be 76. So if you want a cannon in right field specifically, then I would just play Mookie in left. But if you want to keep the diamond shields at both corner outfield positions, then I would go Mookie in right in parallel 1 and then Clemente in left. Obviously, Keuchel at shortstop holding it down. The other disclaimer is that if you wanted to play Mookie over Utley at second base, that would allow you to open up another outfield position. And if you did so, according to my rankings, I believe the next man up would be Delgado in left field. So if you want a bit more offensive heavy lineup, that could be an option for you. Again, this lineup is ordered as I would use it in game. We're only rocking 2 lefties, so they bat at 3 and 6. Makes a lot of sense. And then on the bench, our righties are Michael Young and Ronald Acuna Jr. Again, one infielder, one outfielder. Our lefties are Gibson and Delgado. And our switch hitter is Jose Ramirez, amazing switch hitter off the bench. Our God Squad rotation is going to be Randy Johnson, Roy Halladay, Tom Glavine, Clayton Kershaw, and Dallas Keuchel. And then our bullpen is going to be Williams, Kenley Jansen, Joan Duran, Steve Cishek for our righties, and Zach Britton, Aroldis Chapman, John Franco, and Josh Hader for the lefties. So that is going to do it for the video. If you guys watched it all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting me this year. Check out the Patreon again in the description. You may be interested in it if you watched this type of video all the way to the end. And I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. We'll see you next time.